Hi Saints, it's Kent, and I'm back to give another recap of our most recent study through the Sermon on the Mount. This last week we went through the first section of the Sermon on the Mount, a section that's referred to as the Beatitudes. The Beatitudes, as many of you will know, they're a series of blessings that the Lord gives, either 8 or 9, depending on how you count them. And they're specific blessings that Jesus gives for disciples of his that manifest certain character traits. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. And then he pronounces a blessing on each of those. And one thing that we noticed about those blessings, most of them, all but 2, are given, when you look at the Greek, they're given in the future tense. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. And if you remember from our previous discussions about the kingdom, in the previous weeks we had talked about how Jesus describes the kingdom a great deal throughout his teaching, especially in the Sermon on the Mount, but really throughout his teaching. And he will refer to the kingdom primarily as a future event. Primarily, just like the Jews of his own day, they were expecting a day in the future when the Messiah would come, when the heavens would rule the earth. The kingdom would be when all the nations are in peace, and really Israel is liberated. The Messiah reigns in Jerusalem, sitting on David's throne. And Jesus was not unlike the Jews of his day in expecting this future national kingdom of Israel. If you remember, his correction toward them was not that there's not going to be a national kingdom for Israel, but that they need to repent. Their spiritual condition was not right to receive it. So now as he's starting the Sermon on the Mount, he's giving these Beatitudes. He's really describing the character of person that will inherit this coming kingdom. It will be the meek, those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. And that's why most of the blessings that he gives, all but 2, are in the future tense, because it relates to what we talked about of Jesus' expectation of that future national kingdom that when he refers to the kingdom, that's what he's talking about. However, if you remember, there was also another aspect that Jesus referred to the kingdom as. He said when he was talking to the Pharisees, when he had driven out demons, he said, if it is by the Spirit of God that I cast out demons, then the kingdom of God has come upon you. Something present, something they were presently experiencing. And that actually relates to 2 of the Beatitudes. The first, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is, not theirs will be, theirs is the kingdom of the heavens. As well as the last one, blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake. Once again, for theirs is the kingdom of the heavens. And so we had, relating to the 2 aspects of the kingdom, the present and the future, we had 2 different kinds of blessings. Most of them, just like the kingdom's primarily a future thing, most of them were future in their fulfillment. They will be satisfied. They will inherit the earth. They will be called sons of God. But as far as the experience of the kingdom of heaven goes, really the kingdom of the heavens, where God has rule on the earth, it can be presently experienced. But who is it presently experienced by? So going back to the future ones for just a moment, we don't have time, and we didn't even have time on Tuesday to go through all of the various blessings that Jesus gave. But I did want to just look at one specifically. When Jesus talked in Matthew 5:8 of the pure in heart, he said, blessed are the pure in heart, because they will see God. And I just wanted to read a section. Once again, we're loosely going through this book, Theirs is the Kingdom. It's a commentary on the Sermon on the Mount that I wrote. Go into much more detail of all of those future blessings in here. There's a free PDF copy available in the description if you're interested. But I just want to read, just to get a kind of a taste of what Jesus is talking about with this coming kingdom experience for those of his disciples who can be described in these certain ways. This one's talking about, blessed are ye pure in heart, because they will see God. The Old Testament makes it very clear that Moses was unique among all the prophets and servants of God. The great men of God, including Abraham, Jacob, Joseph, Elijah, David, Isaiah, and Daniel, all received communication from God in the form of visions and dreams, but Moses alone was different. When Miriam and Aaron began to speak against humble Moses, the Lord explained to them exactly how special his communion with Moses was. He said, "Hear my words. If there's a prophet among you, I, the Lord, make myself known to him in a vision. I speak with him in a dream. Not so with my servant Moses. He is faithful in all my house. With him I speak mouth to mouth, clearly, not in riddles, and he beholds the form of the Lord. Why then were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses?" That's from Numbers 12, 6-8. And likewise in Deuteronomy 34:10 we read, "There has not arisen a prophet since in Israel, like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face." Now Jesus mentions that the pure in heart, those who seek God and God exclusively with their heart, will see God. This reminds us of these descriptions of Moses' interaction with God. The Lord knew him face to face, and Moses is said to have beheld the form of the Lord. No doubt, it was Moses' purity of devotion to the Lord that enabled and facilitated this level of intimacy. Recall Moses telling the Lord, "Show me your glory." And the Lord covered Moses with his hand as he walked by, yet allowed Moses to see his back. Exodus 33, 18-23. Shortly before this unique event, Moses had confessed to the Lord that he and Israel were helpless without him. Moses pleaded, "If your presence will not go with me, do not bring us up from here." That's in Exodus 33:15. It was this humble and pure dependence on the Lord, this purity of heart, if you will, that the Lord rewarded with the most intimate relationship with himself. Likewise, Jesus tells his disciples that it will be the pure in heart who will be rewarded with this kind of intimacy, seeing God in the coming kingdom. We can even say that some will be rewarded with a relationship to the Lord that will exceed even what Moses had. Moses, we are told, was prevented from directly seeing the Lord's face. Exodus 33, 20-22. In 1 John 4:12 we read, "No one has ever seen God. Yet, with regard to the saints' future, the Apostle Paul says, no eye has seen, nor ear heard, nor the heart of man imagined what God has prepared for those who love him." 1 Corinthians 2:9. In the next age, the level of intimacy with God that awaits the pure in heart will be a face-to-face fellowship that goes beyond even Moses' experience of old. Now that's just one of the blessings that Jesus offers. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. And we could go all day with an explanation of what it means in the coming age for the meek to inherit the earth, or for those who hunger and thirst to be satisfied. But I just wanted to give a little taste, and again, you can find the link in the description below to see a more detailed explanation of all of them. However, I did want to also elaborate just a little bit on when we're talking about who are those who don't necessarily wait for the second coming of Jesus, for the establishment of the kingdom to receive their blessing, but there are two that he says, right now, presently, theirs is the kingdom of the heavens. Now in Matthew 5:3, Jesus says that it is the poor in spirit. Poor in spirit. Now in Luke's account, Jesus gives a very similar teaching, but he just says, "Blessed are ye poor," and its corresponding, "Woe unto you who are rich." But in Matthew's account here in the Sermon on the Mount, it seems less about external wealth and more about the condition of one's heart. It reminds me of what Paul says in 1 Timothy 6:9. He says, "Those who desire to become rich, fall into temptation." Do we today, desire the world's goods? Do we desire wealth and fame and prosperity and material blessing? Or do we seek first the Lord? Seek first his righteousness. Seek first his kingdom. It's when we're able to be completely emptied of the desire for the world's goods, we're poor in our spirit, that we experience the heavenly rulership over the earth today in our own present experience. The second beatitude, really the last one, but it's the second one that's given in the present tense, where he says, theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Theirs is the kingdom of the heavens. We talked about that earlier. It's plural. It's in Matthew 5:10, and it's where he says, blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake. And he goes on in the next two verses, blessed are you when people insult you and speak all kind of evil against you on my account. So when you're persecuted for righteousness' sake, or when you're persecuted for Jesus' sake specifically, he says, rejoice. You're blessed. Your reward is great in the heavens. Michelle actually gave an example of, there was a group of believers in a Muslim country, I believe it was in Iran. They were under severe persecution, and a few of them were able to escape, and they escaped to the West, probably to the United States or to Europe. And as they were reflecting on it a little bit later, like they escaped the physical persecution, and it wasn't long before they were saying they actually wished they could go back. They wished they could go back into that experience where they were being persecuted, not because they liked the persecution, but because there was a tangible experience of God that they had there with the other believers that they've not been able to experience anywhere since. And that reminded us of what Jesus says, blessed are you when people persecute you. Blessed are you when you're persecuted for righteousness' sake. For yours is the kingdom of the heavens. God's presence is with you. God is ruling the earth presently in your experience when you're persecuted and when you're poor in your spirit. And so, just once again, in summary, there are blessings that Jesus promises. For the most part, we take them on faith. They're things that are future in their fulfillment. They're going to be true for us in the kingdom age if we're faithful to Jesus today. When Jesus comes again to rule the earth, it's the mourners who will be comforted. It's the meek who will inherit the earth, ruling together with him. But additionally, beyond the future blessings, those who are able to be emptied in their spirit of a desire for all the world's goods, seeking only the Lord's things, only the kingdom and the righteousness of God, they have an experience of the kingdom of the heavens today. Likewise, for those who are persecuted for the Lord's sake, persecuted for righteousness' sake, theirs is the kingdom of the heavens. So that was just a brief overview of our discussion that we had this last week. As I mentioned, much more detail in the book. You can find it in the description below. Next time, Lord willing, we're going to be getting into the next section where Jesus talks about his disciples as being salt of the earth and light of the world. Looking forward to speaking with you then. Thanks.